What's up, guys? It's Devin Jackson with Blue Chip Scouting. Today I'm joined by one of my good friends on Twitter and in the NFL draft community, Cory Kinnan, who writes for the QBR, covering the Browns and NFL draft and also NFL content with the analyst. Cory, thanks for joining me today, man, and talking about the Cleveland Browns.
Absolutely, it's always a pleasure, Devin, when we have the chance to cross paths. So I'm happy to be here.
You recently just finished releasing your NFL draft guide and being able to put that out for the public. How was that being able to release it and getting that all out and be able to share kind of what you've been thinking about a lot of these prospects that you've been talking about in the 2022 class?
Yeah, it's a huge sigh of relief. That's a lot of hours that went into that. So especially down like in crunch time. So once that was finished, I think I was up to like 5:30 the night before getting it all finished, editing and things like that. And I've already found some typos and some things like that, but I'm choosing to live with it. So, but it's a huge sigh of relief. It was a big undertaking, but I'm happy to say I did it, and I'm happy to say I put my name on it. So um, that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. But now we can turn our attention to the Cleveland Browns and what they could do in this mock draft scenario. And as we've been doing here at Blue Chip Scouting and going through all 32 teams and doing mock draft and basically talking about scenarios for what each team could do. So for the Browns, they're the kind of a unique situation. Obviously, don't have a first round pick this year, but plenty of depth in this class. Cory, what do you see as a potential need for the Browns, or what's kind of your dream scenario that you would love to see happen come draft day, which is just a little bit over a week away?
Yeah, so even with the Amari Cooper trade, wide receiver is still a pretty big need. Outside of Amari Cooper, you're still looking at Donovan Peoples-Jones, Jakeem Grant, Anthony Schwartz, Demetric Felton as your guys on the roster. So again, outside of Amari Cooper, I mean, there's not a lot of depth there. There's not a lot of experience. There's not a lot of talent. And so I think adding another receiver, either a pure X, I could see them going that direction, like a George Pickens. If they view Amari Cooper as a guy, you can move to the Z, you can move to the slot, kind of that move piece. But if they want to stick Amari Cooper in the X, then you're going to need one of those move pieces, because I don't think Donovan Peoples-Jones is going to give you that. And I think the roles for Schwartz, Grant, the rest of the guys are going to be kind of niche, to where they're just going to be on certain packages, and they're not going to be base guys. So a receiver is definitely a huge need. And then if you look at the interior of the defensive line as a whole, but starting with the interior, right now their defensive tackles are Taven Bryan, Tommy Togiai, and Jordan Elliott, and they re-signed Sheldon Day. So I wouldn't feel comfortable with any of those four as your starters. Maybe Taven Bryan at the 3 tech, when they're really just asking him to pin his ears back and get after the quarterback and then just penetrate gap. Maybe then. So there's some serious lacking along the interior of the defensive line. And then looking at edge, they have a contract offer out for Jadeveon Clowney. Still no news yet, though. He still hasn't decided to do anything. So right now we're looking at Myles Garrett and Chase Winovich as really your 2 edge rushers as well right now on the roster. So the defensive line as a whole needs a facelift too. So I would say those are your 3 big needs heading into the draft.
And then obviously for a couple of those positions, you have some favorites. Maybe Logan Hall's in the mix for the Browns, and obviously your guy Alex Wright as well. I know you're a big fan of his. So we'll see once we pull up the simulator if either of those guys end up being available and maybe a second or third round pick here for the Browns. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here with you so we can get this started. And do the Cleveland Browns mock draft, 7-round mock draft here. So pulling up the Ryzen draft mock draft simulator. Can you see my screen okay?
Yep, we're good.
Awesome. All right. Select the Browns here. And go ahead and get the draft started. And obviously, as we talk through this mock draft, it's going to be a little bit of a wow here. And any outside kind of what the Browns are going to do, any surprises you're expecting from the first round, or any predictions you kind of have in your mind that may happen in the first round, like players that may go earlier than we expect?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the first year we don't have a clear cut like, oh, this guy's going number one overall. So even at the top of the draft, it's like, how are those top three picks going to shake out? Like, do the Lions want Thibodeau? Are the Jaguars going to take Hutchinson? Who do the Texans take? Do they go for a guy like Stingley or Sauce, or do they take Trayvon Walker? So there's a lot of different nuances that could happen, and I'm just interested to see how these quarterbacks shake out. You know, which ones are going to go first round? How many are going to go first round? So there's a lot move. There's still a lot of moving pieces, and we're still a week away. Where this time last year we kind of knew, Trevor Lawrence was going one, Zach Wilson was going two. We knew probably Trey Lance. We knew a quarterback was going three. We knew it was probably Trey Lance, but so we kind of knew how those first three picks were shaking out already. Where we have no indication this year of what's kind of going on at the top of the draft.
Absolutely. So we're here at 44 for the Cleveland Browns' first pick of the NFL draft here in the second round, and in a few of the positions of need that you talked about, defensive line, edge, as well as receiver. And they had quite a few names that you dropped. George Pickens is a potential X for the Browns. He's down here right here, and then obviously you got Logan Hall, Travis Jones as well. That they're both available. Any particular position you want to target here early in the second round for the Browns?
Yeah, so a defensive tackle or wide receiver for sure. I'm trying to think of like what the Browns would do versus what I would do, and I genuinely don't know how the Browns value defensive tackle. But I'm gonna go with what I would do. I mean, Sky Moore is incredibly tantalizing right now for me because he's my wide receiver 6. Outside of those first 5 guys, I think he's next up. But the interior of the defensive line is so glaring that it's hard for me to look past that. And with that being said, I love Travis Jones. He's my IDL 2. Come draft day, he's probably not getting out of the first round, but he's here on the board right now, so I can't look past Travis Jones right now.
Absolutely. You talked about him kind of fitting a need for the Browns. What would you see from him in particular that could fit on that along that defensive line and be an impact player from day one?
Yeah, I think he would be your day one shade. So he'd sit right in that A gap, and then against run or pass, he's not coming off the field. So he's athletic enough to kind of show some quick twitch as a pass rusher and get after quarterbacks. He's got heavy hands, so no concerns about his ability to stack and shed as a run blocker. So I think day one he's coming in and he's plugging up that A gap. With even the versatility to kind of slide out to 3-4 eye looks as well. So brings a lot of versatility, brings a lot of athleticism, and for the most part, what they need is a guy who can plug at the A gap, and he can certainly do that as well.
Absolutely. All right, we're back here on the clock at 78, and you talk about receiver still being in need along with edge, and we'll see who's available here at 78. You got Alec Pierce, Jalen Tolbert, Khalil Shakir, Justin Ross at the receiver position, and then at edge you have Kingsley and Enagbare, Josh Pascal, Sam Williams, D'Angelo Malone, and Dominique Robinson. Alex Wright a little bit farther down. Any of those guys striking a name for you, or is there somewhere else you may want to go here?
Yeah, I'd say let's go to wide receiver. Again, still a huge need. I'm going to go under the assumption that the Browns are gonna go with an X and view Amari Cooper as that guy who can kind of move to Z, move to the slot in some packages. And I just think the Browns have a ton of profiles that they take into a lot of analytical profiles they take into consideration. And when I look at Alec Pierce, he's young, he's athletic, he's productive. He checks a lot of boxes to the Browns. And so he's kind of redundant to Donovan Peoples-Jones' skill set, but sometimes having depth and having guys just go at it in camp it's not a bad thing, especially when you're looking at the depth at the wide receiver position. So, I think right here I'm going to take Alec Pierce and just bringing him up a little bit north in the state of Ohio.
For sure, Alec Pierce obviously starring at Cincinnati and being one of Desmond Ritter's big targets at Cincinnati over the last couple of seasons. Quick turnaround here, back up at 99 for the Browns for their second, third round pick. Got receiver, got in interior defensive lineman. Where do you want to go with this next pick, and do you possibly want to address edge here?
Yeah, let's go edge. That's the third one that I mentioned, and I think the guy right there at the top is I would probably value Alec Wright a little bit higher here than this board does, but I'm going to play the board and see if I might be able to get him a little bit later. Because again, the Browns need 2 edge rushers. They only have Winovich. They only have Myles Garrett. So, but when I look at Josh Pascal, I don't know if there's a guy who gets off the ball faster than he does in this entire class. Like that dude's first step is explosive. We're talking about another guy with heavy hands who can anchor in pretty well against the run as well. Can give you looks out wide, can give you looks at 4-eye is probably where he's going to be 5-tech. 4-eye is going to be where he's most ideal, which does make him kind of a sub package rusher, which again means you probably need to go get another edge, which I have full intentions of doing, as I've already said. But again, they kind of have a body type opposite Myles Garrett. If you look at Olivier Vernon, if you look at Jadeveon Clowney, they want those bigger dudes who can be more stout against offensive tackles against the run and kind of set strong edges and get after it against the run. So I think Pascal fits that bill, and so I'm going to go ahead and grab him here at 99.
Yeah, it makes sense. Pascal also has a great story, a cancer survivor and someone who really started at Kentucky and has been rock solid. So yet another great pick here for the Browns to add to their depth and continue to build on the roster. All right, round 4 pick for the Browns at pick 118. Alex Wright is still on the board. You talk about maybe getting him a little bit later, but we can see who else is on the board. I got Jelani Woods, Amir White, Marquise Hayes in the interior offensive line, Terrell Bernard, Tyler Beatty, Luke Gadecki, Zion McCollum as well. Any of those guys in particular, or is there another position where you could see the Browns adding depth? Obviously, a cornerback. They just signed Denzel Ward to a big contract extension, so lock them in for some more years. But any other holes you see on the roster that maybe they could address here early in round 4?
Yeah, so now I'm kind of shifting my attention to, again, a second edge, a guy who can give you some solid first, second round reps, but also as a rotational guy, but also get after the passer. So that's kind of where my mind goes. Again, they re-signed Ronnie Harrison to a 1-year deal, but the Browns love to run a lot of big nickel, a lot of dime. So, if they can find a long-term third safety to pair with Grant Delpit, to pair with John Johnson, that's kind of where my mind goes. And then thirdly would be a tight end. They parted ways with Austin Hooper. David Njoku's taking over the tight end 1 role. And now we kind of have to see, is Harrison Bryant a tight end 2? Or is he more of a move piece? And if Harrison Bryant is a tight end 2, then, they also cut their fullback Andy Janovich and I think are just planning to roll out with, a bunch of tight ends and find a tight end who can kind of move into, an H-back role, and kind of slide into the backfield as well. So, but looking at this board, I just don't love the value right there. So I'm just going to go back to edge and I'm going to take Alex Wright right here at 118. I think come draft day, top 90 to 120 is probably going to be his range. I know he doesn't get a lot of buzz yet. I still think he's the biggest sleeper in the draft class, but I think NFL teams are probably onto him, and I think that's probably the range that he's going to fall into. So I have no issues taking him there. Again, his pressure rates are up there with Hutchinson. His pressure rates are up there with Ebiketie. Those are the guys we talk about when we're talking about guys who are putting up extreme pressure rates this year. And again, the level of competition isn't there, but Alex Wright can win inside. He can win outside. He can kind of do it all. So I have no hesitation taking him right there.
Yeah, absolutely. With Alex Wright, you've been on him since really day one, and very, very interesting to see kind of how his name is grown a little bit in the NFL draft community. But like you said, I think with day 3 picks, teams are going to make their dart throws, and I think they'll go after him early day 3 if he doesn't end up going at the end of round 3. So now we're back here at 202 in round 6. After making that pick in round 4, the Browns, I believe, maybe have a few more selections here. Yeah, I got 1 here in round 6 and then 2 in round 7 to kind of wrap it up. You talked about maybe getting a tight end move piece. Chig Okonkwo is, I know, someone that you really, really like for the Browns, and maybe he could be the pick here. And then you talked about maybe a safety piece, but not seeing a whole bunch there in terms of value, in terms of someone being a nickel. So what do you see here at the kind of the top of the board here in the 6th round, and someone in particular is it standing out for you?
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and I mentioned getting a move piece. So you're right. Chikazima Okonkwo has been my guy for a while. And I just love his ability. He can play in the slot. He can play in the H back. He can play in line. He gets after it as a blocker. He's not a great blocker, but he gets after it. They even designed like jet sweeps for this dude at Maryland when Matt Canada was the offensive coordinator. So I think Okonkwo can be that move piece if we're slotting Harrison Bryant into that tight end 2 role. If they need him to be a big slot, he can slide out of the slot. If they need a fullback on the field, he's heading to the backfield. So a lot of versatility, a lot of athleticism. He's a pretty darn good route runner too. So if you do have to stick him on the slot, he can create some mismatch potential. So 202 was a good spot for Okonkwo, and I'm going to take him right there.
Absolutely. And as we get ready for a couple picks here in round seven, obviously round seven is known as the basically dart throw picks where you're just getting people who may not make the roster, but someone that you may see a specific plan for, or someone that could be a contributor down the line. In any positions in particular where you see maybe some developmental pieces down the line, or just players you see on the board that you would love to go after here?
Yeah, I see a guy right at the top. So again, if we're talking about those profiles, the Browns like to check off. Gunter's right there, kind of right along that age guardrail. They usually don't draft dudes who are 23 as of draft day, and he's not. He turns 23 like I want to say like just within a couple weeks after draft day. So it's close, but from an athletic perspective, from a height weight perspective, he checks those boxes for the Browns. And again, when we're talking about edge, we just drafted two. I know Winovich is on the last year of his deal. There's no guarantees that he makes the roster even. Like if he doesn't pan out in Cleveland, there's no guaranteed money attached. And even if he does, there's no chance they say, okay, well we're gonna give this guy a contract extension. He hasn't been a world beater by any means in the NFL level, and I know he kind of fell out of grace in New England. So maybe he does find a home in Cleveland. But again, if we're taking dart throws. From a profile perspective, Jeffrey Gunter's a pretty darn good dart throw to take right here at 223. And just go ahead and stack up the defensive line. Again, if we're talking about how weak the defensive tackle class is, drafting a few edges who, Pascal can play 4-eye, Gunter can play 3-tech, that can kind of mask up some inequities along the defensive interior as well, kind of help soften the blow too.
Absolutely, versatility, obviously in the name of the game, and each of those edge players provide a little bit of different versatility. So absolutely spot on with that. All right, final pick here in the 7 round mock draft, and here at 246. See plenty of receivers here on the board. Some DBs, a few running backs. Matt Razia, who's getting buzz is probably a early day 3 pick, maybe a mid day 3 pick as well. A few linebackers here on the board as well. And any guys you see in particular that you would love to go after, or just names that you may want to look up here?
Yeah, so there's a few wide receivers at the top I'm probably interested in. Again, just because we've only taken one, and as mentioned, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Anthony Schwartz behind, now Cooper and Pierce it's still not a lot of depth to love. The problem is these guys are all three kind of old, and I know the Browns really consider that heavily. But again, we're talking day 3 dart throws. I really love what Jared Stearns brings over the middle of the field. He's sturdy. He's solid as a rock. He's not gonna blow you away with anything he does, but he's just sturdy. And he just seems like a guy. He screams a guy to me that just is going to find a role for 8 to 10 years in the slot and just make a killing for himself. So I'm going to go ahead and at 246 here. I'm going to take that chance on Stearns. Doesn't make the roster, but again, he's a guy who just screams sturdy, screams like, oh, this guy's going to be dependable for a quarterback on third downs over the middle of the field, when he needs a catch. I like his game a lot. So.
Absolutely. So, kind of reviewing this draft class that we put together here for the Cleveland Browns. First pick we had at 44 overall went Travis Jones from UConn. Then 78 went Alec Pierce from Cincinnati. 99 Josh Pascal from Kentucky. 118 went Alex Wright from UAB. At 202, we went Chig Okonkwo from Maryland, the tight end from Maryland. 223, Jeffrey Gunter, the edge from Coastal Carolina. And 246 went Jareth Stearns from Western Kentucky. When we look at this draft class from the Browns, what would you give this grade to the Browns if they made these selections or ended up with these picks come draft day?
I would be ecstatic, especially those top four. I mean, I think wide receiver, I would love a little bit more excitement than Alec Pierce. I know Alec Pierce has a lot of fans. I would prefer a little bit more versatility, but, where the board fell, I'm absolutely okay with Alec Pierce right there. But, those top five picks, like that would be a home run for me. Travis Jones, again, is my ideal too. So I think only Jordan Davis is better than him in this draft class. So getting him at 44 would be awesome. And then the edge depth that with Pascal and Wright would give them a lot of versatility along the defensive front that they desperately need right now. So, and then Okonkwo, and anytime I can add him to a mock draft is just like icing on the cake. So, I would be ecstatic if this is how the board fell next week.
Absolutely, and with us a little bit over a week away, it certainly could be a situation where all these things happen, or obviously things kind of change or kind of go a different way. And a final question here before we wrap up here. Could you see the Browns possibly trading up? There's a big gap between that round 4 pick and round 6. Could you see them trading up and maybe going after a player or two? Just because there's such a long gap, and maybe they see a guy that falls down the board that maybe they would go after.
Yeah, so I know they really love Treylon Burks. So if teams start to overthink those testing numbers and he starts to slide down the board a bit, I think there's real potential that they could try to move up and get Treylon Burks. I don't think same with Garrett Wilson. I know they like Garrett Wilson, but I still think Garrett Wilson's probably first or second receiver off the board. Whatever happens with Jamison Williams, I know teams still really love him, but I would say, if Treylon Burks starts to slip a little bit, definitely can see the Browns making a move up. They're just not a team that have ever moved upward, really. They're looking to trade back and gather assets, but I don't see them trading back, unless it's one of those 3rd round picks this year. So we'll see. I mean, they did trade back in 2017. Andrew Berry was on that staff, and they traded up for David Njoku back into the 1st round for the 3rd first-round pick that year. So it could happen if they find somebody that they really, really highly value. And so, we'll see. But I would bet money they probably don't, but it's not out of the question.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Cory Kinnan, for coming on and doing this Cleveland Browns mock draft with me. Where can people find your work, and where can people find your Twitter handle?
Yeah, so at Real Cory Kinnan is my Twitter. If you want to follow, go for it. If not, I don't care. It's whatever. But the OBR again is where my Browns content lives. We have forums, we have articles, we have, a Twitch stream as well that I'll jump on from time to time. So that's where my Browns content lived. And then NFL specific and draft content at the Analyst. So mostly NFL right now. We're doing some draft content. So those are the 2 main places where you can really find my work.
And then for your draft guide, where can people find that as well?
Yeah, that's on Twitter as well. I tweeted out a link. If you just want to DM me, I can also just tweet out the link again. It is password protected, so I'm asking, $5, and then I'll tweet or send out the password to you as well. But just $5 is all I'm really looking for. So if you're interested, just go ahead and DM me there, and I'll get you hooked up.
Absolutely. Make sure you guys check that out. You can follow me on Twitter at @RealD_Jackson. You can follow Blue Chip Scouting on Twitter at Blue Chip Scout, and you can subscribe to the YouTube channel for more mock draft series analysis along with some NFL draft videos as well. But for now, for Cory Kinnan, I'm Devin Jackson signing off here on the Cleveland Browns mock draft.